You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators every week. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Zach. I'm very excited about our guest today, Derrick Garrett. Derrick is the sound therapy visionary behind Zoundz Therapeutic Sound for Pets Anxiety. Channels his experience as a former multi-platinum recording engineer and producer to create sounds that reduce pet anxiety. His commitment to pet wellness has established a new standard in auditory care, offering calmer environments that enhance the health and happiness of pets, both in professional setting and at home. Derrick, thank you for finding the time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be on the show. Thank you guys for inviting me.
So, as we started, I see these records behind you on the wall, and I was just like, who is this? And how do we get someone from the record industry doing something for pets? So I'm very excited to learn about Zoundz, and tell us what it is and how it solves the problem.
Yeah, so Zoundz Therapeutic Sounds for Pet Anxiety is an app-based solution to effectively reduce pet anxiety in both professional environments as well as home environments for pet parents.
So if I understand it correctly, do you create the sounds for exam rooms or hospitals, which is the background music or certain sounds that help animals to be calm?
Yeah. So it's actually music-based, but very specific music. So at the beginning of Zoundz, when I founded Zoundz, it was based on peer-reviewed studies that showed that there are specific parameters in a song, such as tempo, chord progression, the key that the song is written in, the overall instrumentation. When you bring all these elements together that make up a song, it could actually have a positive or negative effect on dogs and cats. And what I will say, to my surprise, when I started to go down this path, the music that is common for cats is total opposite of what's common for dogs. In fact, if you play cat music for dogs, it'll actually have a negative impact on the dog as opposed to a calming effect.
That's absolutely fascinating. And so the first question that comes to my mind is like, okay, so we need a song for the cat and we need a song for the dog. For our listeners out there to experiment with, you got anything?
What, do you want me to play something now?
No, just give us something that maybe we can share, or if there's some popular piece of music that people can put on for their pets.
Well, this is the thing. So the reason why the foundation of Zoundz, I kind of cringe when I hear people say, "Oh, my dog loves reggae," or "My dog loves any sort of genre of music." Pets do not understand genres of music. However, they do respond to specific parameters within a song that could have a common effect on them or a negative effect. So Zoundz is all original content, right? So we don't use the word genre in our messaging at all. It's all very specific content. And so unlike just playing a radio channel or playing a television channel or a Spotify channel, any sort of streaming platform channel, it's hit or miss, right? A song could be played that could very well calm your dog or cat, but then the very next song could be a song that will undo everything that was just done. So Zoundz is very intentional. Every song that's in our library has been tested in shelter environments, which is probably one of the most stressful environments that our dogs and cats can be in. So it's very intentional, very specific.
That's super fascinating.
So can you describe the product for us? Because we're on podcast, so we want a visual. So you said it's an app. How is it productized? How do you deploy it into the environments? What does it look like?
Yeah, so it's an app. So it's available in the Android App Store as well as the Apple App Store. And in terms of usage and how you use it, it's no different than any other music streaming platform in terms of functionality. However, what makes it very different is the content. So when within the app, once you're inside the app, we work with Dr. Lisa Radasta, who's a board certified animal behaviorist, and she's been with us as an advisor from the very beginning. And she worked with us just to kind of make sure that we stay rooted in the science and not overstepping boundaries and that sort of stuff. So she's helped us with a lot of the content that's in the app, and not in terms of creating it, but just making sure that it's in alignment, right? And again, we're not crossing boundaries. So once you're in the app, we have a channel, several channels. One of the channels that we're really excited about is environmental sounds. And so that particular channel is a list of sounds such as fireworks, thunderstorms, gunshots, urban environments. All these sounds are in one place. So you don't have to go all over the place to YouTube or wherever to try to get these sounds. They're all listed in a particular channel, and you can use those sounds to just to help your pet become more comfortable and less anxious when they're actually hearing the sounds in real live environments. We also have another channel called, believe it or not, joint meditation, which is actually becoming more and more popular, where this is an opportunity for the pet parent and their pet to be able to actually have meditation together, which is one of our 3 C's, which is calming, connecting, and conditioning. So that falls under the connecting, right? And we have another channel called Pawsome Stories, where it's all dog and cat related story content that's underneath, with Zoundz playing underneath. Because sometimes, our pets like to hear our voice as well as Zoundz when they're left alone, for an example. And one last channel that I'll talk about that is probably it is our most popular channel, and that is our channel called Scary Sounds, which is used for thunderstorms, fireworks, or any sort of environmental sounds that are having an adverse effect on your dog or cat. And this is actually white noise masking. So it's sound masking as well as Zoundz playing at the same time. So it's calming and masking simultaneously.
So cool. How in the earth have you arrived at starting a company like this? This has got to be an interesting story.
You know what? I have to say, it's probably not going to be as interesting as you may think. Now, I'm sure we'll get into this.
Hey, you're ruining the story.
All right, I'm sorry, but as you know, you see the records in the back. So my background is audio engineering and record producer. But Zoundz was born, the idea, out of a conversation. So I was having a conversation with a veterinarian friend / neighbor one day after work, and he was just kind of just venting and sharing how it was becoming more and more difficult to examine both cats and dogs in a veterinarian environment. And he was saying how to make it a little worse, the pet parents would blame the vet and the vet tech, saying, "Oh, my dog or my cat's fine at home. It's got to be you. You deal with it. You figure it out." And so when he was sharing that with me, immediately, like my head started to explode. I'm like, so because of my background in music and another company that I started, I knew and I know how music affects human behavior. So I immediately started to think, like, man, I wonder if there's any studies or whatever that's out there that shows how music can have a positive calming effect on dogs and cats. And so I dove in and I found these 3 or 4 peer-reviewed studies that I was speaking about earlier on that showed that they did a test and everything, and it showed that there are specific parameters in music that actually calm dogs and cats. But again, what's common for dogs is total opposite in terms of what's common for cats. And so from that conversation, that that's I can go into it more, but that's where it all started, from that one conversation.
So the obvious question is, how do you go from the conversation, reading a peer-reviewed study or 2 or 10, to starting a software company as an audio engineer?
Right. So for one, because of my audio engineering background, I completely am record producer. So not just an audio engineer, but a producer and engineer. It was very easy. It was my language, right? When they started speaking about chord progressions and all that stuff. So that became very easy. So, I wasn't doubtful about it because it was peer reviewed, so I definitely was not doubtful about it. But I was like, I have to test this for myself. And so at that point, it was just me wanting to test it out, right? So what I did was I reached back into my Rolodex. I contacted some really, solid composers that I knew from my past. I provided them these specific parameters, and I said to them, I do not care about genre. I want you to stay within these parameters. And, hopefully this music can also be pleasant for humans as well as the cats and the dogs. And so they each got back to me after a few weeks with 3 or 4 composed tracks based on these parameters. And so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it. I'm like, well, how do I know if this is right, wrong, or whatever? I need an environment to test this in. And that's when I thought, the best environment and the environment where this would be needed most, even though the conversation started with the veterinarian, would be where it's needed most would be in a shelter. So that's where we started to test. And it took a couple of months to really realize like, hey, this guitars are not going to work. And when it was all said and done, it just came down to like what's really effective is like the piano, especially for the dogs, and the lower register, kind of thing. And there's more instrumentation beyond just piano. But at any rate, once we started to play in the shelter after a couple of months, the shelter was like, Derrick, when I come in the mornings, I forget that we have dogs in the shelter because they're so quiet after playing this music. Because at that point, it wasn't Zoundz, right? It was just the music. And so they're like, after playing this music throughout the night, it really had a positive impact on our dogs and cats the following day. So that once I started to get that sort of feedback, I was like, okay, this is a business. It's clearly pet anxiety is clearly a big issue beyond just being in the veterinarian, environment. It's a big issue at home, from separation anxiety, and the list goes on and on. So I was like, clearly there's a major issue, and clearly this is a solution. We're not saying it's the end-all, say-all solution. I mean, you could use Zoundz with other products if you choose to do so. And we definitely don't say, oh, you play Zoundz and your pet's going to fall out. It's a process. And in addition to just being a process, we see Zoundz as a tool, even in the pet parent on the consumer side, that can be used for the overall wellness of your pet throughout their life here with you. So yeah, so it's exciting, and we're cruising on the journey, having a great time.
That's a crazy startup that this is something very new to us here, and and when you mentioned meditating with your cat, I thought immediately of California as the market for some reason. That sounds like something people in California would do.
Right. But listen, remember, you're hearing it here first. You're going to start it. I'm telling you right now. We all know that meditation for us, humans, it's huge. But you're going to start to hear about it more and more about pet meditation as we're starting to focus more on overall pet wellness.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, I'm all for meditation. I just never done it with the cat.
I think crazy cool, crazy good. This is very interesting. This is very innovative. It's and the story is so cool. Yeah, I downloaded the app already.
You mentioned something that piqued my attention. So, all of it, but one of the things was these scary sounds. So we know that the fireworks, 4th of July, that's a big issue, and tons of animals are getting just sedated. They just blast them with sedatives, and then that's a solution. And is that the direction you're taking here? And do you see that as being a solution for training for that? Is there something there?
Absolutely. And I don't use the words training because Dr. Radasta does not want to hear it, because we're not trainers by any means, but we are guided and directed by a board certified animal behaviorist who, again, keeps us on track. So I just want to put that out there first. But yeah, so we're starting to gear up now for thunderstorm season and fireworks season, for specifically July 4th. That's the big one, right? So we're starting now to actually, I'm saying we're preparing now, but we're going to really be in full force and launch, our message in May, where we can, start to educate the pet parents and speak with, the pet professionals so they can actually educate and recommend Zoundz to their clients, the pet parents, because you don't want to really wait until July 4th and then play the scary channel, scary sounds with the calm and the white noise masking taking place. You really want to start to play the fireworks sounds and introduce it early on. And in addition to, so that's going to help. Let me back up. So you want to start playing it early on, but when you start to play it early on, by the time the fireworks are happening, it doesn't mean they're not going to have any anxiety, but hopefully it'll be less, right? And you still would want to play the scary sounds channel even then. But we want to start to educate, the pet parents on the fact that they should really start in May. or even sooner, right? With just playing it at a low volume, and just getting them used to hearing that sound. Yeah, so by the time it's actually taking place, again, it'll hopefully be a lot less of an anxiety impact on the pet.
So what's the big vision? What's going to happen with the product, and what's the different world look like from your perspective when this is thriving and everybody's using it?
Yeah, I mean, we just, at the end of the day, we really have a heart. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but I was raised with animals, and we really have a heart for helping our pets live healthier, happier lives, and especially in shelter environments. We have a program called the Harmony Project, where right now, I think we're in over 100 shelters. And my wife actually is a director of our Harmony Project. And we're not, when we were coming up with this idea of how can we give back to the shelters, I didn't want to go through the just check your corporate citizenship box and we're gonna give them Zoundz at no cost. Because my question immediately was, okay, we give them Zoundz at no cost, but how many shelters have the ability to be able to play Zoundz where it's going to be impactful? Not very many. I know you have some shelters that have more money than others, and they do have sound systems. So my wife and I have been funding personally out of our pocket, sending them speakers as well as donating Zoundz. So that's really, really, so to answer your question, our huge goal, and I don't know how long we're going to be able to afford to provide these speakers at no cost, but our ultimate goal is to have Zoundz in every single shelter across this country. That's a huge, big picture for us. And then what comes with that, of course, we want Zoundz to be viewed as, on the pet professional and on the consumer side. We would love for Zoundz to be viewed as a true go-to tool for your pet's overall wellness, pet wellness. We want to, and we're not saying we're the end-all only tool, but we do want to be in the conversation. When you're thinking of pet wellness, we really want Zoundz to be in the center of that conversation.
Cool. Well, who is your customer? And the people that are listening, we have all kinds of people listening, veterinarians, investors. We have, people from the industry. Who's your core customer, and where do they find you after they heard this podcast and say, oh my God, I need to download Zoundz?
Well, if you're a pet professional, which I'm sure most of the audience would be pet professionals, we actually have, we just launched in January, we're calling it our Veterinarian Provider Network program. And with that program, if you go to zoundzforpets.com/vet, you'll find us there. And that's actually a program where we're providing Zoundz to veterinarian hospitals and clinics at no cost. And we're providing them with the education material, digital signage, everything that they need. And we want them to be able to, to offer Zoundz to their clients when they come in. Like, so for instance, with thunderstorm season upon us, fireworks season coming up with July 4th, that's a perfect opportunity for any veterinarian hospital or clinic to be able to offer Zoundz as a solution. So they can, but it's not just restricted to veterinarian hospitals, although we've started there. But if there's any pet professionals who are out there, we're providing Zoundz complimentary to them, and educating them to be able to better educate the end user, which is the consumer, pet parents.
Well, as usual, we ran to the end of the episode, and we always offer the bite-sized 20-minute ones, but we always ask these two questions. Is there book, TED Talk, video, YouTube, anything that inspired you recently that you wanted to share with the audience?
Oh, I gotta be honest. I've been so buried in working on this, a couple of different campaigns. I haven't watched YouTube or read anything recently. But this may be a bit off topic a little bit, but I was really inspired by my oldest son, Ethan. His football team, they played last year, and they were like the bad news Bears. They didn't win one game, but what I love was they lost with their heads up. Every game, they still came off the field smiling, right? And it's not because they didn't want to win or they didn't think winning was important, but they still, and it was just very inspiring to see that. But then the real inspiration came, the exact same team playing the exact same teams this past season went from not winning a game, maybe scoring 2 touchdowns the entire season, to finish in this last season number 1.
Wow, cool.
That's
okay.
That's push through. That's for every entrepreneur out there.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I apply that. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now, right? And that's the thing, pushing through and losing with your head up.
It reminds me of the
So
book that
that
I just read, advised by our guest, Fail Forward. I really like that.
yes, I heard about
Yeah.
that. Yes, I heard about that book.
Got
Yes.
one more question for you. Another innovator in the pet health or veterinary space that you'd like to recommend for the show?
I'm not just saying this because she's an advisor, but just her thinking and just what she's doing, I think, as a whole for the pet space, I would hands down say Dr. Lisa Radowska.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.